Hi and welcome. This is Angela, and I'm sharing some secrets about health miracles in this series of miracles and working with your health crisis or health situation. So, this is the second video. I'm going to be doing 3 on health. And this one in particular is sharing a miracle or 3 when I was in hospital with cancer the first time. That was my first time I was flat on my back in hospital, and it wasn't looking good. So I shared in the first video how I wasn't very functional. And when we're non-functional and sick, we are like not really good at relationships. You can imagine what you're like when you're sick. You're just terrible. You don't want to talk to people. You don't want to be nice. Right. Yeah. So imagine being in a public hospital in a ward with other people experiencing the same thing, and they're all suffering as well. And then you've got a very overwhelmed medical staff, like nurses have 10 patients, they've got to rush here, rush there, people are dying around you, or they're going to, I had people in other rooms around me, often having to get not just resuscitated, but like what they do with the electric pads to jumpstart them. I had that around me quite a bit throughout my hospital stay. So I got to witness when people are not at their best, and also how medical professionals have this incredible intuitive sense it's innate to them. I did speak to a nurse and asked her once, why do you do this? And she says, I just love it. I love helping people, because the pay in Australia for a nurse, it's not that great. And they stay up all night. They're on their feet. They're running around. They're multitasking beyond what's normal. And she was helping me do some things in my body and helping me move, and because I couldn't move my body, and I'm chatting to her and she's working at the same time and just telling me how she loves it. And I got to study them because I was flat on my back and out of it on a lot of drugs. So I was mesmerized by all of the different personalities and the, not so great personalities and the gruff personalities, the rude ones, the cheery ones like G, who was talking to me. She was so bubbly and so excited about her job, even after 10 hours working. And I began to play with this because my life was in so much jeopardy at that time. I realized immediately I was dependent on these people, whether they were in a bad mood or a good mood. And because the cancer was such a disaster every day, there was always a new problem. Like we'd always have one problem and there'd be another problem, because I had lots of secondary problems from the cancer in the uterus and the ovaries. So my liquids were all out of balance, clots in the lungs. I had liquid coming out of the lungs. I had a sac with the liquid coming out. A couple of times I went under unconscious, and all these sort of disasters kept happening. And it was interesting to see, when there was a risk of doing surgery, how the medical doctors had to make decisions with my family sometimes, but without them as well. So sometimes I had family and friends there to make decisions when I couldn't. But I also saw, because I was there the whole time and sometimes conscious, how in the moment doctors had to make a decision. So the first time was, one of the big decisions was to put a puncture in my lung to release the liquid. And the doctor was very honest with me. He wasn't 100% confident. And I'm pretty compromised at this point, thinking, oh God, well, you better work it out, because this liquid is rising up in my right lung, and you can see how much liquid was going to start coming up from the scans and the x-rays, and there was nowhere else for the liquid to go. So he was trying to do the procedure, but before the procedure, he was sort of researching and planning it. And he even told me, you shouldn't have come to this hospital. It's a secondary hospital. You should always go to the hospital with your main surgeon. But because the liquid had come so suddenly, I hadn't planned to go to the hospital. I was hardly breathing, and only for one of my best friends who picked me up did we discover that I was in severe trouble, even though I looked like I wasn't. It was getting really bad, so we went to emergency in a different hospital. So to have a doctor tell you, well, I'm not sure you should have come here, was, at the time, I was quite amused, but hardly breathing, and quite amused by the situation. And so what I've learnt, because of all these disasters and the prowess of the medical team, not just the doctors, but the nurses and the whole team that comes around someone when they're in a very precarious situation, what I learnt is that a doctor has to take lead and make executive decisions that he doesn't know if they're going to work out, but he's got to do it. And I realised that if I wasn't going to support, even though he wasn't 100% confident, if I was going to send him negative thoughts like, oh, great, thanks for telling me that, now I feel really confident in my current state, that was going to not work. And I worked that out pretty sharp. My brain went, well, don't put him down because he's not 100% confident to put a puncture in your lung to let the liquid out. And I was actually quite amused when he said it, because I thought, oh, this is actually quite challenging for him to do a procedure that he's not confident with, but he's doing whatever he can to save my life. So there was sort of this gratitude about, well, I'll take what you've got. I don't know if gratitude's the right word. I'm like, well, give me your best. And so then I started to realize, if I want him to do his best, I need to send that energy and that thought to him, and not him per se. If any of you know me, you know I talk to the divine, and you know I work with higher consciousness. And I'm sharing these miracles because in my hospital experience, there were so many miracles, it's hard to isolate them. So I'm trying to share just one example today. And I saw it over and over with the medical professionals. And what I do with focused intent, some people call it prayer, but in that moment, I'm like, divine, you've got to help him now and come into him. And so in other meditation practices, you might call on the universal intelligence or higher intelligence to come into that person right now. I short circuit and I call it my divine. I say, I have a name for my divine, and I say, come in now, George. That's one of my jokes with Sylvia, one of my guides we used to call George. But I have a name, and I like, you come into this doctor now. And basically, he punctured my lung, got it in the right place, and the liquid was draining. And that's just one of the miracles. But I realized very quickly, if I had gone into panic, nerves, not calling on a higher consciousness and going into anxiety, blaming, judging, oh God, why am I in this situation? Why does this happen to me? Which I did anyway in the hospital. Don't worry, I had my fair share of that. In that moment, I wanted him to get the right place in my lung and puncture it specifically in the right place. So that's a simple strategy that I use consistently throughout my hospital stay. And I've used it with nurses. I had in that same hospital this nurse who was like my guard dog. I couldn't believe it, because the lungs had started all that liquid and the clots were so everywhere in my lungs. So through the scans, I was seeing how bad it was. They weren't sure of my diagnosis, if the cancer had gone to the lungs. I knew it hadn't, but I started to believe that maybe that was a possibility. I started to doubt my intuition. But this nurse for 4 days was by my side. It felt like she was there 24 hours sometimes. She was like my guard dog as well. So because I was in a panic, I also used my focused intent and prayer to say, come and help me now, come and help me now. And I swear, this woman, this nurse, she basically would bark at people if they were going to move me, because she was terrified that sometimes rolling me or moving me might compromise the liquid in my lungs. She'd make sure she'd watch over me and make sure I was rolled in the right way and made sure that the drainage was flowing properly. And when it wasn't flowing, she was on it and she was really vigilant. And in the beginning, when I met her, I was like, oh my God, this woman's too much. I had that negative perception of her. She's full on. And even a few people were like, wow, she's a bit intense. And in the end, I just loved this person because she made sure at any moment I was looked after. And that was because I was praying and focusing my intent on help me now, divine, come in now, help this woman to help me, and in the best way possible, in the highest way possible, in the way that I don't know. And so this is where I get a lot of my secrets about how to survive medical professionals. Is basically, it does not matter what their personality is. It does not matter if you like them, and it does not matter if you know them or trust them. This is not, in my situation, it was life and death, or it looked like that. I knew at some level I wasn't supposed to die, but I wasn't sure because things weren't looking good. So I doubted that thought or feeling that I wasn't supposed to die because the body was shutting down. And so in that moment, I got to see every moment when I didn't like someone. And the last video I talked about that, when I had negative thoughts about a medical professional, I could see my body actually getting worse. But this video, I want to emphasize, if you are in a health crisis and you don't like your medical team, or it could be anybody, a yoga instructor or anybody that you work with that's trying to help you progress, you always must recognize that there is something in that person in your life in that moment there to help you for some reason. You don't know. Even if they piss you off or make you upset, that's to help you for some reason you may not know. And for medical professionals, if we want them to be on our side, or if we want them to work in our highest good, we have to put that desire out there. We have to call on the universal intelligence or call on the thought form that that person gets into that highest consciousness to help you in that moment. And literally before my eyes, all the time, I've seen people shift. So people that, like this nurse who was like my guard dog by the end of the 4 days, she even, right at the end, she walked with me to transport me to the other hospital, into the ambulance, into the vehicle that was transporting me to the other ambulance. She was not letting me go. And I was so moved by her service, her dedication, her intense desire to keep me alive. It was really, really quite touching. But at the beginning, I was judging her and I was thinking, lady, chill out. I'm not, you don't have to get so excited. But by the end, I realized that her passion was actually what was required to help me realize that the divine has got me. They're there with me. They've always been there with me. They're here with me this time, even though it looks really dark and really it was bad physically. There was a lot of support. And she was so passionate. She got me to see that. And also, interestingly, this nurse would argue with people. No, that's not the right thing to do. You can't do that because of this. So because I had been focusing on my intent, I could see sometimes she was advocating for me to make sure the best outcome would come. And I could see the divine using her, coming in and saying, no, get this lady to speak up right now because that's not going to help Angela. So this is some of the things that I've been doing with focused prayer to get miracles. And we do it with Soma. And I've got a link on Facebook and YouTube for you to look for that. On Instagram, you may not have the links, but we've got a special event. It's really, really special in Sydney, Australia. We just had one in Perth. And when we prayed in Perth, if prayer's not your word, just insert, focus on a highest outcome. We prayed for our country to have abundance. and it was just extraordinary. And it was in that prayer that I saw that the Soma, which comes to you in you focus on what you want, and the Soma comes in Australia and New Zealand in water, and outside India in water, blessed water. And it sounds weird because it is. It's a phenomenon. It can't be explained. But what I saw in my focus in the prayer and the intent that we did as a group, uh, there is this potential for us to really access that intelligence, that divine intelligence, that higher intelligence, the universal intelligence. We can access that now. We can do it as a group. We can do it to come together and really start to elevate the way we look at ourselves, not just at the problems and find solutions. That's a good thing. But what I saw in the Soma event in Perth was the ability to feel how our human species is extraordinarily gifted at this time to connect to the land where we are in Australia and New Zealand, and to feel how this land is here to serve us to grow. And of course, health is when you're not in optimal growth, right? You know, part of you might be dying, a part of you might be letting go or releasing an old health pattern that maybe came through your ancestors or through your family. Certainly in my case, I have a genetic mutation, and that's through my family. So there was something going on about that with the cancer, that I was releasing the sadness about that or the anger about that thing in my family. And anytime we come together as a group, as a country, as a collective, to focus on our health, our abundance of being alive in this body, in this land, that has a certain power that elevates us to what is possible for our health as a species. A lot of people right now are whinging about humanity. It's this, it's that, it's whatever. But in that Soma event, I saw the capacity of humanity to be extraordinary in the way we pray or focused with our highest desires for the potential of our species. Of course, it's not here. I saw that in hospital. I wasn't in a good state, right? But when I prayed and had that focused intent, I saw that nurse who I was judging in the beginning transform into my best advocate and basically stick by my side like glue. That's right, because I wasn't supposed to move in the beginning. For some reason, I can't remember. But she wouldn't let anybody touch me. She wouldn't let anybody except her touch me. And it was extraordinary love she shared. And that's what I saw in the Soma event, that we as a species, we have this potential, and it's all about just stepping into it. It sounds really like easy, because it is. And that's what the Soma has now given to me. We've been working with the Soma. We've been getting it in our homes. In the Soma events, what's extraordinary is having a group together magnifies it. So next time I'm going to share in the video what to do when you have conflict with your medical doctors, because I had a really great example of that. You can't stand your medical professionals. I have a lot of friends that don't like hospitals. I'm going to talk about that next time. But what I saw was when we were in a collective in the Soma event, we can actually get beyond all of that conflict. We can transmute it. We can feel all of those hurts that we might have inside. That's the next video. I'm going to look at some of the hurts I had and why I went to hospital in the first place and had that very dramatic experience, because I had to heal a lot of hurts. And I saw in the Soma event, when we have focused intent, wow, we can just allow our hurts or our feelings about not being the best human species, which is all our old judgments about who we are. We can let that come up and be healed by the Soma. The Soma is a wonderful gift from the divine. It gives you love, and a sort of divine level of love, and it's called Ananda. It's like this joy that's beautiful, like a reaching out of the divine to you to show you how much you are loved. That's what I experienced in the event, the power of how much we are loved by being alive on this planet. And the oneness is also another divine state. So we're not alone in this. That's certainly one thing I learned in the hospital. There was no way I could have made it. All right. If I didn't have a medical team, I didn't have all those nurses, I didn't have all my family and friends coming, I wouldn't have made it. And even in the surgery, which I'm going to share next time, the surgeon that I couldn't stand, he saved my life. I saw that the team were extraordinary. And that's what these events are about, bringing people together. So you can join in person in Sydney. I'll have the link in YouTube and Facebook, or online option as well for those of you outside of Sydney or who can't make it. So I'll look forward to next time, part 3, where we talk about the other experiences of working with conflict with people, medical professionals, and then hope to see you online or in person at the Soma event. Thank you.